Alrighty. Minute late, huh? A minute or two late. Got a lot going on here. This is summertime. Let's do some checking here. Okay, today is Thursday, June 16th, 2022. I'm Mark, your host, coming to you from Baker's Green Acres in Marion, Michigan. Lovely Marion, Michigan. We are in the lower part of Michigan, the northern lower part. There's the upper peninsula. We're in the lower peninsula. They call us trolls because we're below the bridge. Right? I don't know. I'll be a troll. That's fine. So today we had high winds all day, extremely high winds. I don't recall ever seeing it like this in the summer. Luckily, I have hay on the ground that I've cut. Last night, 2 a.m., the house shook. Boom! And I remember reaching over and shielding Jill, and I said, "Get dressed, we got kids." And there was a big flash of light, and a couple minutes later, I said, "Well, maybe I overreacted. It's just a storm." Right? But it was a big flash of light, and I was asleep when it happened, so I thought we were under attack. All right, Justin's with us. And Sean, how you doing? Truck pulling Marion tonight? Oh yeah, they got the fair going on. I don't go, and I know we're missing out. They have midget wrestling too, but we're gonna miss out on that. It's kind of a shame. Yeah, everybody wanted to go, but I had this show to do, so I had to bow out. The wind it's decreasing, I think, but wow, is it windy today? Really something else. So I'll just tell you a little bit about what's going on around here. Yesterday, we had a family get together because my son Sam is home from the Air Force. So we all got together and drove out to the lake. I am so fortunate to be able to drive an hour and 15 minutes to this place that we really like to go. One of my consulting customers turned me on to. And it's just down this beat up old road, and you get there and there's a toilet and a little parking lot, and you walk down to the lake, and you can go this way or this way, and there was very few people there, and the beach is as clean as they come. People are pretty good here as far as taking their trash out with them. Even I've seen several groups of kids, teens, and they picked up everything and took it with them. I was really proud of them. That's not the case some places. Kids can be real little pigs. But we got there probably 2:30 in the afternoon. We're kind of late beach people. And here in Michigan, when we go to Lake Michigan, about 2:30 in the afternoon is about right because it's the peak of the heat and it starts going down the other way. And so I've always liked staying at the beach late. If I had my way, we'd get there about 4 and then stay until the sun goes down. I really like that. But it worked out okay because we had little kids with us, so we couldn't really do that. I think someday when it's just me and Jill, we'll probably do that. We'll just drive out to the lake, watch the sun go down, and then come home. It is just phenomenal. I mean, it's just we watch the sun go right down over the lake. And this place that we go to, when we're walking on the beach, it's like, can you believe we live here? I mean, it seems like you would have to get on a plane and travel to get to a place as absolutely breathtakingly beautiful as this. I mean, perfectly sandy beaches. Behind us, all just wildlife area. Kind of steep, but beautiful trees, everything. It's just absolutely gorgeous. There is something going on in the lake, though, and the first time I've seen this, but they say that it happens. And there's some sort of temperature change that's killing fish, and so there's all these little fish about the size of a like an ant, nah, bigger than an inch, like a sardine, and they look like sardines, kind of, all over the all over the beach, and nothing's really eating them. You know, you don't see any birds coming down. You'd think there would be just hoops of seagulls taking those things away, but I guess it's all up and down the coast. So that was a little different. Haven't seen that. There was no smell or anything like that. They're just tiny little fish. They just dry up and kind of blow away, I think. But the scrounger in me, I thought if I only brought a rake with me, right? If I only brought a rake. All right. Hey, Keith. All right. I'm going to get into your thing in a minute. I'm going to tell everybody what happened in Keith's world. It's a sad thing, but welcome to the club. You know, it happens. But we stayed there until I think about 8 o'clock and then came home. And by the time we got home, everybody was whooped, just whooped, you know, sunburned and riding in the car on the way home. We ate like kings because we brought a lot of good stuff from the house, and everybody brought stuff and chipped in. So I ate a lot of really good food. And we got home. Well, I didn't have the show. So it's still light out. So I hopped on the lawnmower and I mowed for about an hour and a half. And it was nice. I really enjoyed myself. You know, it's just very nice out, calm. It was hot. And so me and Jill definitely took advantage of our nice, cool pool and jumped in, swam around for, about 20 minutes, and then went and got in bed. And it was just glorious with the fan blowing on us. And it wasn't supposed to rain. They didn't say anything about rain, and we had put chicks out just earlier this week that are 2.5 weeks old. And whenever that happens, the chicks like to be under the stars, right? So luckily, Rachel went out and moved the chicken tractor, so she moved it over them, and we had just a cloudburst last night with a lot of thunder and lightning. And I think we lost 4. That was due to piling. And it could have been a lot worse. Could have been a lot worse. When Rach went out this morning, she was relieved to find some of them quite wet and quite out of it, but she brought them up, put them in the brooder, and got them under the heat light, and they came back. Several of them came back. I think 4 of them didn't make it, though. Just FYI, the ones that didn't make it were the white ones. Right. So, you know, we do White Mountain Vantresses and Freedom Rangers. Freedom Rangers did well, and they made it. You know, they revived. All right, we got Brittany with us. Hildy Strombowski's with us. It's not Strombowski, I know. Stromowski. I went to school with a girl named Strombowski. And Andrzej. I'll leave the last name alone. But welcome. I'm glad that you guys are with us. So I did get a text from Keith today, from Keith Sutton, and he's on here, and he's saying it's been a hard week, and he said that I can talk about this if I want. And I think it's worth talking about because this is farming. This is farming. All right. And he said I can use this for a conversation, so I will. Okay. I have some good news. I have some bad news. I'll start with the bad news. I lost 37 chickens yesterday when I was in the doctor's getting the teeth work done. Total loss of birds is 40 this year. I was hoping for my birds. I was hoping to pay for my birds so my birds would be free. So he wanted to sell some of them so he would get his for free. And But he goes on to say, but the good news, and he did some good scrounging on oil drums and hardware for mounting doors and things like that. So, I mean, the bad news is bad. Um, but really, 40 out of, I don't know how many you started with, but there's people on here who have had significantly uh, larger losses. So you need to know that, first of all. And not to slap you down and say, quit your whining, but you really, if you're going to be in the farming business, it's coming. You know, you're going to have those days, brother. You are going to have those days, and you just had yours. And what you do from there is going to determine, what type of operation you have and how you develop your character through this. So something like that happens, you lose 40 birds. And I'm guessing he probably started with 80. So it sounds like half. Well, I would have to ask you the question, okay, how come? How come? Why did they die? And let's analyze this, because if you did something wrong, then let's isolate what you did wrong. Let's first identify it. Let's isolate it, and then say, well, I'm not going to do that again, and don't put yourself in a position where you have to do it again. Okay, so yesterday, I would reckon, I don't know this because you didn't say, but I would reckon it was because of the heat, because it was pretty hot yesterday. So maybe you should just chime in on here, Keith, and let us know what was the cause of death of these 37 birds. It seems like there was 37 plus 3. Okay, he's not saying. Hildy's coming to us from Wisconsin, so she's back from Florida. She's one of them snowbirds. Okay, Inga's with us too. So you had 185 and you've lost 40 of the 185. Okay, so you should have 145 left in 145 left. And Inga said 200 died per raccoon at coons. What's wrong with that dog they got? That dog should be mopping the floor with coons. And now we need, okay, let's see. I was using a chicken brooder like the chicken tractor, and they went in and went on the hot outside and they baked. Okay, so I was right. It was too hot. Too hot. I bet you they piled. When it gets too hot and they can't get away from it. Okay, so I mean, it's one thing when you get a bolt of lightning that comes down and it just roasts a bunch of them. There's not much you can do about that. But in this case, your job is to ensure that the temperature in there, when at the appropriate age, is the appropriate temperature. So when you have a day out that's really, really cold, you should be, I got to be looking at this. Or a day that's really, really hot, it's still, I got to be looking at this. So let me tell you what happened to me. I've told this story before. We had 30 chicken tractors running. We were new at manifolding them into the, or having lines go to each chicken tractor to supply water to each chicken tractor. We were new at that. I hadn't seen anybody else do it. I just thought it up one day and did it. And the tubing that I used was clear, and it would fill up with algae, and it would plug the system. And we had some people show up here just unexpectedly, had no idea they were coming, and they just showed up, and they were here from Montana. And we were like, oh, hi. And then it was like, boy, it sure is a hot day. Well, now that you're here, it's good to see you. Good friends of ours. Why don't we go to the lake and go swimming? Okay, let's go. Because it was really hot. And we came home that night. It was probably a Thursday, and we were going to butcher the next day. And we went out there after dark to pick up chickens. And I could tell something was not right. They were way too still. And sure enough, there was 4 chicken tractors that had many, many dead birds. The count was over 250, right? And these were going to be processed the next day. And so they were big, heavy birds. And you pick them up, and it was like, they were stiff. They were dead a long time. And it was the heat, and it was the fact that the water plugged, and it was the day before that it had plugged. And Joe told me later on that, yeah, their water was plugged for a day at least, and that was too much. They couldn't handle it. So anyway, we had to say, how are we going to prevent this from happening again? Now, that's years ago. Joe was probably 15, and that's 10 years ago. So he's grown up now. We've absorbed the loss. But the question is, what did we do? What did we do at the time? I could have said, that's it. I'm done with this. Let's go. Let's move to Dayton, Ohio, and become, I don't know. What would we be coming into Dayton, Ohio? What would you be in Dayton, Ohio? But it may have flashed in my mind that, why am I doing this? This is a pain. Why am I doing this? But what we did was we realized that it was the algae problem in the lines, and we need to fix that. So I thought, oh, well, if the sunlight can't get in there, then the algae can't grow. So I changed over to black lines, and that's what I use now. I've been using that since, and we've never had a problem with algae after that. Not one problem with algae. So from the well to the waterer, it is a continuous line, and the only place where the water is exposed to the elements is when it's in that waterer. So we fixed it. It was a terrible loss, a lot of money down the drain. Excuse me. But instead of quitting, or maybe blaming one of my kids, or yelling at my wife, or kicking the dog, we just fixed the problem. And now we've had no problems since. So there it goes. That's what we did. So in your case, you got to do something. You got to do something to regulate the temperature in there. So, like, if they probably needed more ventilation. That's probably what it was. Like sitting out in the full sun, that's not good. And probably no airflow through there. And you're probably going to lose some more. You're probably going to, because you've really, really stressed them. And when you stress them out like that, that's when things go wrong. You want to make their life as effort-free and stress-free as possible. Always have food, always have water. They're not bothered by predators. They're warm enough or cool enough. And that's your job to do that. So you're going to have to figure out what went wrong and then fix it. That's all there is to it. We can have a memorial service for your birds, but it's not going to bring them back. Or we can say, oh, poor Keith, but that's not going to do any good. Just got to get it fixed, right? Because of the 186, you could have lost them all, but you only lost 37. You can look at it that way, and then ensure that you don't lose any more. And the next load that goes through, make it your business not to lose a single one. You can do that. It just takes diligence. And once you have a mistake like that, you're never going to forget it. I've told you the story a couple summers ago. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We had a hailstorm. The hail was the size of, oh, marbles or a little bit bigger. They'd sting you for sure. I mean, probably give you an eye hemorrhage if you got one in the eye. But the kids, when it starts hailing, they've got to go out and run around in it. And so they did. And me and Jill were under the overhang and we were watching them, and oh, that's fun and everything. And we never thought for a second that those hailstones hitting the brooder roof was going to be enough to put them in the overload mode. And they did. And they piled. And we lost over 100. So, who would think that that was going to happen? We just did not think of that. And now we will. Next time we get a big hailstorm, go down to the brooder, because when they pile, if you can get there quick enough and you can spread them out, then you'll decrease any losses or minimize your losses considerably. But we didn't check it until probably 6 o'clock, and there was a lot of losses. Poor Rachel, she just goes down there and it's like, how did this happen? But it did. Lane Buck, hi all, short day today. Okay. Sean Wise, I am doing okay. Hard lesson. You'll be all right. Just lick your wounds and get off. Get on to the next thing. Don't go getting a tattoo or anything. I guarantee you, if you stay in farming, you're going to have way worse losses. Way worse. It just happens, but hopefully that won't happen again. Let's see. Okay, so our day today was kind of interrupted by the wind. I could not get out and cut hay today. Everything was soaked. So I just made the best of it. I went around and started looking to see what's on the shelf and what's not. And maybe my critical eye was telling me something that I just haven't seen in the past. But I did go to one of my favorite stores, and I did notice some things where, I went to Evil's Hardware, one of my favorite stores, and I did notice that there were some things that it looked sparse. Not real sparse, but like I needed some 2-foot high chicken wire. There wasn't any. And I mean, that's a mainstay, right? And, but that could have just been a local thing. So I needed a spark plug. They had it. Okay. So when I was getting the spark plug, I said to the guy, Tom, I said, how's things going? Like, are you guys getting stuff in, chainsaws and stuff? And he says, yeah, things are going okay. So that's the intel that I gathered today. I didn't go to the general store to see what the food situation was. But I am still getting videos sent to me about dead cows, and Hildy just brought it up here in Kansas. There's a video of what looked to be like several hundred Angus cows dead and bloated, and the guy was moving them with a skid steer with a forklift on the front of it. And it looked like he was organizing them and lining them up. I'm sure that it was going to be an insurance deal. The insurance company would look at that. I'm sure that they're insured. But I don't get why black cattle in 100-degree weather is such an anomaly. I mean, we've had black cattle forever. Angus are black. 106 degrees is not a new thing. I mean, it's rough, but that's when it is the responsibility of the owner or the person that's there to do something to alleviate the heat And I've heard this come up a couple of times today, like, well, what do you do? What do you do? And what do you do when you get hot and you're at a parade and you're really hot? People will take a face cloth and put it on their head, on the back of their neck, with water on it. Take a bottle and squirt it on your hair and down your neck to cool you off. A great way to do it with livestock is to mist them, right? So all of the products that we pump uh, through Drip Depot, the misters and the micro sprinklers, those would come in very handy in a case like that. But if you're a cattle operation like that, and you've got 1,000 cattle and they're in a feed lot with no cover, right? There's no roofs over any of these things. And you're going to insure them with an insurance company. The insurance company would come out, and this is how it works. They come out and they say, yeah, we can insure them. It's going to be this much per cow. Well, that's kind of a lot. And they said, well, if you put an overhang, give them some shade, we can decrease that by this much. Well, it's going to be kind of expensive. Maybe I should take my risk with no shade. And I'm telling you, when you get down into the lower 48, shade for cattle is, or the lower part of the 48, it's very important. I mean, it's not like maybe we can do it. It's a mainstay. And if you don't have that, you would have some sort of system in place to get water on them, a lot of water on them. I mean, if you want to protect that investment. Otherwise, they're insured, let them die. Now they're easy to handle. I don't know. I looked at the pictures and something stinks to me to have that many full-size cows just hit the ground and nobody did anything. What? Nobody was there? I don't know. But there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of food processing facilities that have mysteriously burned or exploded, or other things happened, or they get bought by the Chinese and closed. Smithfield is a pork production company, and I guess they closed the one out in California. It was one of the biggest ones. They just closed it down, and they said it's not profitable to do business here because of all the regulations and the lack of quality help. I don't know. Can you imagine that? So they're closed down. So that looks like that's another indicator that there might be a shortage of food. I really don't want to just come out and say to you that, hey, there's going to be, a shortage of food, because that's a bold claim. The food system in the United States is based on people who are trying to make a living. And if there's a gap someplace, somebody will fill in. So if this is a conscious decision to create a food shortage, they're going against the grain. I mean, it would take a lot of people to do it, and they would have to work very hard, because like we see people around here that are growing wheat for the first time because wheat is going to be in short supply. So I don't know. I don't really want to come right out and say, hey, there's going to be a food shortage. But I know that I am getting a lot of intel, and it's building a case for food shortage. I'm sorry. And then I think the final thing came in today. It's is it Man in America is the guy. He's on Rumble. And he just seems like a solid guy that gives commentary on what he sees. And he gathered up a bunch of stuff that he's come across. And it's pretty convincing. But then again, he sells, Patriot Supply food too. So I got to take that with a grain of salt. I'm sorry. But look at me. I would be better to say, Yeah, there's going to be a food shortage. You all better come take my classes. I'm not going to sell it that way. I'm not. I mean, if there's a food shortage, there's going to be a food shortage. If not, there'll be something else or something else. I don't, myself personally, I do not want to rely on the system. You know, uh, we need to come out of Babylon. We need to come out of her, right? So, uh, no one's preventing us from coming out of her. You know, there is no prevention of milking cows or butchering cows or raising pigs, anything. I just got done with talking to a guy here. His wife, he's a pastor of a, I forget what denomination they are, but, and his wife was buying food here and milk, like mostly milk. And then she got to the point where she was late in her pregnancy and they got other kids and it was just too much. So she said, hey, I'm going to take a break for a while. But then the baby came and they wanted to bring the baby by and show us, you know. So I thought that was nice. And so we were sitting at the picnic table talking. And, oh, let's see, what was my point here? Son of a gun. Oh, yeah. He said, oh, we got to having that conversation about living to 140 years. And he says, well, I don't know because I don't know as how long, if I want to deal with any of this tranny stuff any longer. And I was like, oh, listen to yourself. Listen to yourself. That tranny stuff is meant to demoralize you, right? The whole thing with Bruce Jenner coming out and saying, look at me, I'm a girl. Uh, we look at that, and the first thing that comes into our mind is there's something wrong with him. The poor guy, he's delirious. He thinks he's a girl when he's clearly not a girl. And of course, the communists say, if he says he's a girl, he's a girl. And if you don't play make believe along with us, then you're a homophobe. Okay, I'm a homophobe. Well, no, you're a racist. Then okay, I'll be a racist too. I don't care what you say. I am not going to play make believe with you and say that what Bruce Jenner is doing is courageous, right? So anyway, in the course of the conversation, he was like, "Yeah, and outlawing the production of food the way you guys do." And I said, "Really? You think it's outlawed?" And he says, "Well, don't you have to do everything kind of on the slide?" I said, "Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you really want to know my commentary on this, if you look at what the Department of Agriculture does, you go to them and you say, hey, I want to raise chickens and I want to butcher them and sell them to the people in my neighborhood. They should be saying, have at it. Here's a pamphlet. Here's how you do it. We're giving a class out here. But they say, well, you can't because you got to get permission from us. And then you can. So you're telling me it's not legal for me to do it without your permission. Is that what you're telling me? That's what they're telling you. But then as soon as I get your permission and I pay you X amount of dollars, I think it was 200 something last time, then it's legal. So long as I pay you. Hey, yeah, you gotta have a license. Sure. You gotta have a license. You gotta pay for it. Okay, I'm paying you for this license, Mr. Department of Agriculture. What do I get for that 200 bucks? Do I even get a kiss on the cheek? What do I get? Well, you get this piece of paper about this big that says display proudly. Oh, yeah? And what else? Do you guys mark it for me or anything else? No. So what happens if I don't get it? Well, nothing. I mean, are you going to throw me against the wall and shoot me? Are you going to drag me off to jail? Is there anything going to happen? I mean, am I breaking a law? Is it law? Is it a law that I have to get permission from you to raise chickens and butcher them, or raise cattle and butcher them, or milk a cow, or, whatever? Is there a law? No. So who's actually flying under the radar. Who's actually breaking the law here? I mean, they're saying they're actually operating under the color of law. They're saying that you have to do this. But that shouldn't be. They're dealing with an ignorant public, and that's a shame. And that's what this is about. We're trying to ignorate you people as much as possible. Okay. All right, we got Robert Podbelski with us. Right on. Inga, what's the going rate for a bale of hay in West Michigan area? You mean a small square bale, or do you mean a 1,000-pound round bale, or do you mean a 2,000-pound round bale, or do you mean one of those, 1,500-pound square bales? So that you gotta be a little bit more specific. But I think you mean probably a small square. I don't know. I don't buy them. And Robert Podbelski is saying $65. Small square. Small squares are 5 to 7 each here in Montcalm County. That's the clerics. Okay, 5 to 7. That's kind of a range. Square bales, if you want to talk about bales buying hay, which I think buying hay is probably one of the, HCF, Hidden Creek Farm was quoted $8 for last year's cutting. Wow. That sounds like gouging to me. That's what that sounds like. It must be small squares. They should buy round bales because they're so much more economical, and then drop them in a place where you can roll them in, like have a place that you can have them outside tarped, and then you can roll them into the barn, tip them over on their side, and then you just unwind them with a fork to feed the goats. I'm sure that's for goats because HCF is goat country and pig country too. Okay, well, I would think they would always buy round bales, but they know what they're doing. I'm not thinking that they're ignorant. Everything's more expensive. It really is. I did look at chicken wire at Eagles today, and for 25 feet. No, it was less than that. It was 50 feet of 2 foot. And for what I'm doing, I would need far more than that. Or was it 25 feet? Yeah, it was 25 feet. They wanted $25, buck a foot for chicken wire. And then I went to the lumber yard, and they had a roll on the shelf, and it looked like the tag was pretty old. So it's like people don't really go to the lumber yard to buy chicken wire, but there it was, exactly what I needed. And it was 150 feet for $65. So I snagged it. It was really nice stuff. I'm building some new chicken tractors. I've told you guys about that. So, okay. All right. Well, good. I didn't really have too much to talk about tonight. I was just quite busy and cutting hay and looking at my resources and trying to make good moves. I think that is something that people want to start doing, is making very good moves. Now, don't make dumb moves. Now is not the time to be spending your money on frivolous things when the argument's there for a food shortage. So now is the time to get some animals on the hoof and sharpen up your skills as far as butchering goes. Another thing that people probably want to take a look at is how to forage. I know I've hit on this before. I've shown you a book that I have here that I'm reading, but this gal goes into 15 different things that are very common throughout the country. And I had an incident today. This has happened before, but it happened really pronounced today on my grow field. It's where I keep my feeder pigs. Those are the pigs that I'm just growing out. These ones are going to be used this fall for our classes, actually. And to cut the cost of their feeds, I grow stuff for them. So in the spring, a lot of times I plant field peas. And if you put the field peas in too early, then when you get a frost, a lot of them will die or they'll get stunted. If you go too late, the weeds will get a jump on the field peas and they'll snuff them out. So I went out and I looked at the field today and I could see the field peas, but they were the same height as the weeds. And the weeds were amaranth, dock, lamb's quarter. There's one other one that I can't think of right now. And they were thick. And they were thick about like this thick. And like if you went out there and you grabbed a bunch of it, you would have like a bunch of like broccoli. I mean, really dense, very supple, high protein or high nutrition weeds. And I can walk out there and I can pick any of those weeds and eat them. And some of them are much better than others, but like I would say that we could live on a lot of these here in the summertime if we had to. They're so pronounced. And the thinking is, well, gee, don't till the ground because those weeds will pop up. So that's where no-till comes from. And no-till is promoted by the Department of Agriculture, both USDA and state agriculture. And guys don't have very good luck with it because you have to break the soil up once in a while to allow the mycelium to run. And so the guys don't have a very good luck with it. And what they've had to do is use taxpayer dollars to buy these no-till drills that you can borrow. Well, if it works and farmers saw a benefit to it, they would be buying their own, but they're not, right? So it's sort of like electric cars. It's the storyline, and so the state agencies are pushing it, but nobody even pays any attention to it anymore because it's dumb. So here's what happened. I mean, when everything's said and done, when I look out into that field with my old eyes, I say, freaking weeds. How are we ever going to grow anything out here because of these stinking weeds? And you start to fantasize about spraying things out there. And don't they make a spray that will only kill weeds? They do. So you start fantasizing about that and you think, well, I'll just plow it all back down. What do you think is going to happen the next time you plant it? Same thing, right? So generally, if peas are being planted for harvest, they use a defoliant. All right, so they'll plant them, everything germinates, and then they go out and they spray, and the spray will defoliate the things that are not field peas. So it gives the field peas a jump. Field peas get up a little higher, they shade the ground, nothing else comes up, hopefully, or not much. But is that the thing to do? You're spraying defoliant on your little plants. Is that the thing to do? I don't know. I don't know. I'm certainly not going to do it. So when I went out there and looked at it with my new eyes, I see just this lush 1 foot stand of stinking weeds. But then I look over at those pigs and I think they'd give their eye teeth to get in there right now and eat that. They're getting worn out on this rye field. They're getting really wore out on the rye field. you look out there now and it's like half green, half brown, and they're not eating it much. They're mostly just going after the roots. So they're not real excited about it, and the weeds are growing. The weeds are taking off. So all I did really was till it up, and then I planted field peas in there, and then I covered it back up. But all I really needed to do was go out there and till it up. The weeds would come on their own. And every one of the weed species that's out there, pigs eat. Now it is fun when you get your timing just right and the peas jump up and they come up before the weeds because they're early um, what is that word that I'm looking for? Come on, somebody. They're early, they hatch. I'm having a Joe Biden moment. Germinate. They germinate. Some farmer you are, but they germinate before the weeds. So the field peas can get a jump on the weeds. That didn't happen in this case, and I'm not exactly sure why. I think maybe I got them in too late, or maybe the field peas were old. I don't know. I can see plants out there, but they're not nearly as thick as I would like them to be, and they're certainly not shading the ground. So I'm not out anything. I mean, the pigs will still eat, but are we overlooking that? Should I occasionally let one of those fields go to seed? To rejuvenate the seed bank. I had a field. I have a field. I still have it, and that was going to be my farrowing field. But what happened was it's really sloped. So the pigs were constantly rooting, and whenever we get a heavy rain, it would wash the field out. And so I projected on that field how it was going to look in a couple of years. And I said, that's it. We got to move out of here. So we moved them out. We moved to a different location that was flat because I learned that for a farrowing field, I definitely don't want to be on a hillside. I definitely don't want to be facing into the wind. I would like to have some cover and a windbreak, definitely from the southwest. And so we moved it up here next to the house. And this has been perfect because the house breaks a lot of the wind and the greenhouse breaks a lot and there's trees and stuff in the way. So it's perfect. But when I was on that field, the pigs dug it up really well. And I never quite got in there because of the weather. I never got in there and plowed it and replanted it. I never did. And the lamb's quarter trees or plants came up. I never got in there to do anything about it. I just watched in horror as these weeds became trees. They had stalks on them like this, and they were 10 feet tall. And I thought, well, what am I going to do out here? What do you do when this happens? I guess you've got to round up the whole field, I guess, is what I was thinking. Well, it's not really what happened. A friend of mine passed away, actually, good friend of mine, and her sheep came to live here. I'm not a sheep guy, but I allowed it this time. And I used to like to just go out there and see the sheep and think about her and, take care of the sheep the best I could. Well, those sheep eventually knocked those trees over, and they ate all of that stuff. And those trees never came back. They took that field down to nothing, and the only thing that came back was the grasses. And right now I've got a lush green field. It is bumpy, not going to cut hay off it, but for grazing cows, it's dynamite, right? So as things happen and you observe it, all of a sudden, those stinking weeds, what am I going to do with them? It's like those beautiful weeds. My pigs are going to really like those. Right? So you got to look at things from a broader perspective. And we're coming up. Oh, wow. Fox News tells me Justin Bieber's next stage is revealed after devastating health health diagnosis. So a lot of it, probably Justin, are you on here? That's probably your boy there. I know you probably get into Justin Bieber. Sorry, sorry to hear that, man. Hopefully you can get through it. But I'm going to cut out because my son Sam is leaving back for his base tomorrow sometime, and we're having a campfire tonight. So I'm not going to go long tonight. Appreciate everybody coming by. Oh, Nance is with us. Did you try to incubate more eggs? We're going to hold off until I build Jill her second chicken area. We're going to have a brooder area so we can have the rooster that we want in there and the hens that we want, because I think we're going to do this. You know what? And if we had an area like that and it was built just to have brooding hens in there, right? Let's say you had 6 hens in there and they all hatched. Hey, they all hatched a couple of clutches of eggs. You could very well. Hey, you guys want to see my grandson? You could very well have all of the chickens that you'd need. You want to see on here? This is a show that I do. And all these people would like to see you, I bet. Because they hear about you. They hear about old Ben. So I'm going to show you guys Ben. This is my grandson. How old are you, Ben? Oh, I don't think you can show guns on here. What kind of gun is this? Ah, the bug assault gun. How old are you? You smell like you've been eating fish. All right, go out and have fun. Yeah, you're a good guy. All right, Andy's here. I was just getting ready to get off, Andy. All right, I'm going to get going, you guys. I'll see you tomorrow night. We're going to have open line tomorrow night, open line / Q&A. So tell your friends, and please like, share, and subscribe. Give us the thumbs up, and I'll see you tomorrow night.